welcome back to our channel. We want to express our heartfelt thanks for your continued support and love. Your comments, likes, and shares have been instrumental in helping our family grow, and we're incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. As some of you have requested, today's story takes us deep into the woods. We've heard your calls for more tales from the heart of the forest, so we've prepared something special just for you. Get ready to snuggle up, grab your favorite snacks, and brace yourselves for a series of haunting camping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. First story. I am an avid mountain climber in Japan. One time, my group went on a night hike to a mountain located in central Honshu. Naturally, we took the easier trail, North Peak, since we were hiking with some newbies. At around 4 a.m., we broke camp and started our descent. Almost an hour in, we noted that we kept passing the same fallen tree and the same boulder. The trail was very straightforward, and many of us had climbed the mountain before, but for some reason, all of us were going in circles. One of the more superstitious hikers decided to make us all stand in a circle, utter a prayer, and leave an offering of food. Only then were we able to complete our descent. This next story happened in 2015 when I was on a day hike at a mountain somewhere in the southern part of the Honshu area. The week prior to my hike, I was in the same area with a friend. Being that the trail is relatively straightforward, we decided not to hire a guide. Fast forward to the present, I decided to do a nighttime trek with 5 of my colleagues in tow. Since I was the one who knew the trail, I was the group leader. About an hour or so in, we heard something that sounded like whispering as we were hiking the trail. We looked around, thinking it might be one of the locals, as some parts of the trail led to small houses. Anyway, it soon stopped, so we forgot all about it. We soon reached a narrow part of the trail, bordered by shallow cliffs on either side. Since I was in the lead, I was very focused on the trail and didn't notice that my colleagues were lagging behind until one of them opened up and said, "Hey, why don't you shine your flashlight in front of you?" I stopped walking and waited for them to catch up. When we reached the campsite, I asked my colleague why he told me to shine the flashlight in front of myself. He whispered, "Well, you were walking so fast. I didn't think you saw the child standing right in front of you." That creeped me out. On another occasion, me and my 2 other friends were walking on our way home from the summit of a mountain, also in southern Honshu, when a kid came to us, asking if he could guide us for 5 yen. He was dressed in a blue checkered shirt and white pants. He was very well groomed. His clothes were wrinkle-free, and his hair wasn't even messy at all. We knew the trail by heart, so we kept on declining his offer. Eventually, we agreed, since we figured he would follow us anyway. When we started to walk again, he suddenly stopped following us. I called out to him, but he didn't mind me. He just stood still. I looked at my companions, and they were very scared, so I said, "Okay, stay there if you want, but you won't get your 5 yen, and left. Now, I've told this story to fellow mountaineers, and they told me the kid was probably a child of one of the guides. This is a very popular urban legend surrounding a certain mountain called the Devil's Mountain. The famous legend goes, there's a story of a couple who went on a hike there at midnight. They got lost when they accidentally took an unusual trail on their way to the campsite. even if the weather was threatening because of a storm and there was zero visibility, they still continued the hike. They arrived at a point where the trail forked, and they turned left when they should have turned right. The left was a deadly trail. Thus, they never made it to the campsite. According to local folk, the two have only recently been found. Now, this next story connects to the previous one, also taking place at said mountain. A group of hikers, together with a guide, went on a rarely used trail. On the way back, they passed a small village where the elders advised them to continue the trek, but leave the only girl in the group at the village. They politely declined and continued hiking. Halfway through, the guide told them that they could go as far as the first half. Being experienced hikers, they paid the guide and continued until they came to a fork in the road. As they were debating which road to take, a couple stumbled upon them and told them to take the left side. They continued following the couple even as it got dark and it started to rain. Suddenly, their flashlights turned off simultaneously, but they still tried to follow the couple. When the rain stopped and their flashlights came back on, the couple were gone, and one of the group members slipped and almost fell to their death from a ravine. Hiking late at night on a trail in the Rocky Mountains when we kept hearing faint footsteps behind us. My friend can be a little paranoid and kept saying, "Dude, there's someone following us." I didn't believe him. Eventually, we were standing next to some brush, and behind it, we heard human footsteps. If you've ever been in a situation like this, you know for a fact that it's not an animal. You can hear the two legs rhythmically walking. Plus, an animal, at the presence of humans, would either stand completely still or just run away. This sounded straight up like a man walking towards us from the woods. Say what you want, but we knew what it was. We turned around and booked it as fast as we could until we were on the road on the way back. To make things more adrenaline rushed, we heard more footsteps in the woods behind us. I thought we were literally about to have to fight off a homeless dude in the woods, but I turned around and shined my flashlight to where I heard the sound. There, I saw 4 pairs of glowing eyes staring at us. There were coyotes. We could hear even more in front, and some circling around us from the sounds of them walking in the eyes I could see. We think there were at least 7 or 8 of them. I had never been in a situation with wildlife like that before, but it seemed like they were stalking us. My friend was a hunter, and I asked him if he could confirm. He said they definitely were. We did the whole assert your dominance and stay aggressive while maintaining eye contact thing and just walked away. They followed us for a bit and eventually got lost. As soon as we knew we were in the clear, we ran all the way to the campsite. I was 17 at the time, so we immediately woke up my mom and told her. It was scary as hell to think that all it would have taken was one of those coyotes to pounce, and the rest would have probably followed. Also, it was the one walk in the entire day when I didn't bring my knife. Although it was scary, we had a cool story to tell everyone when we got back. Hey guys, there was a dude following us in the woods in the middle of the night, and then we got stalked by coyotes. Third story. My friend Jess and I lived in a secluded cabin during quarantine. We spent the days there drinking beers, picking up trash, swimming, and just goofing around. We also started doing something that sounds odd to say out loud, but at the time kept us sane. We'd get into the woods, strip off to our socks and shoes, hike in silence to this little lagoon where we would lay out. It was insanely meditative, and I absolutely loved just barefoot wandering. It felt so satisfying in this primal sort of way. Anyway, the more we roamed like that, the more in tune we got with the woods around us. Without the chatter between us and the careless stomping of booted feet, we'd become part of the woods in this weird way. Probably helped that I was stoned out of my mind half the time. We'd surprise people pretty often without meaning to, passing within a few feet before they noticed us. It was like our guts started calling the shots. We could feel storms brewing, and all the creatures seemed to stop minding us when we walked like that. So whenever the woods went silent, we knew something was coming. It was one of those days with thick skies and electricity in the air. It had been stormy for a few days, and the woods were pretty empty. We'd only seen maybe 2 other souls all day. Darkness had really started to creep in, although not taking control quite yet, but quicker than usual. We were heading out of the woods barefoot and knocking back the dregs of some warm beer, chatting about nothing. I remember we were coming up this hill when all of a sudden it was like I'd swallowed a snowball. I looked up at Jess, and she was frozen mid-laugh. Something was wrong. The woods were off. We were surrounded by murky shadows and dead silence. Heavy silence. Tense silence. Then we heard it. It was this metallic sort of sound, a kind of clanging we couldn't really make out. Metal striking stone over and over, a bit further down the trail, squarely in between us and the way out. We stood like statues, tucked behind some trees, just listening. A shovel. Someone was digging. We crept closer. I remember how the sound made my palms itch. Jess's face was flushed rose red. I told myself I was being stupid. In fact, I had a backpack with a little spade we used to plant flowers and dig up rocks and such. Who was I to judge this person? But then again, that was a little garden spade. And as we got closer, it became clear that this person had a full-on shovel and was digging in the middle of the trail. I kept trying to explain it to myself. This person was just digging. Sure, it was dusk, and a lightning storm was hastening our way, but we all cope with quarantine differently. And sure, it's odd to carry a big shovel this deep into the woods, but maybe they're burying a beloved pet. And sure, it makes no sense they'd bury their pet in the middle of the trail, but maybe they're digging a bike jump. And yeah, they don't have a bike, but on and on like that, my mind churning out reasons, and still the knots in my gut wouldn't loosen. We were almost on him now. I think it was a him, though they were wearing a scarf, hat, and heavy clothes, all black. A bit odd for summer, but again, he might be mourning for his sweet Fido, who loved that spot in the middle of a narrow dirt trail. With every step, my stomach hurt more. We were both shining in sweat. The sound of metal striking earth and stone seemed deafening. It's sort of a primal fear, isn't it? Rooted deep in our guts, completely deaf to every excuse I was handing out. We were just waltzing along 1 minute, cracking jokes, slugging beers, and suddenly, it was like every neuron was firing. Every muscle tight enough to snap. My mind racing. I was taking stock of everything. 2 girls barefoot in swimsuits and overalls, 2 empty beer cans, and a bag of found trash, and a backpack of random stuff. Jess was holding our bucket of rocks, though we picked skinny flat rocks for skipping, not for self-defense. I had a can of pepper spray buried somewhere in my bag, but much to my mother's dismay, I bet I couldn't easily access it. And that stupid spade. It feels so insane looking back. I've never been in a fight. I've never raised my voice. I spent most of my days talking to toddlers about emotional regulation, and yet here I suddenly was tallying up what I had on hand against a total stranger. But all these excuses I'd fashioned for him had fallen away, and only one thought stuck. Maybe this gut feeling is wrong. Maybe he's doing any of a million things. Maybe he'd feel awkward or embarrassed seeing us bolt away. What is the cost if it's right? If we walk past and he swings the shovel, then what? What would the excuse cost us? Something shifted. I don't know what. It felt like such a high voltage situation. A single spark in a gas-choked room. Jess went white, said the first words we'd exchanged the whole time, and said, "Don't look. Just run." We ran, chased down into the woods and off the trail, close to the water we could jump into if he chased us. We sprinted, leaping over boulders, ducking under trees, thorns and stones sticking into our bare soles. I didn't feel them, though. I didn't notice the blood on my feet until we broke out of the tree line. Later, we tried to piece it together, tried to understand what had happened. We were cucumber cool, ordinary, and definitely felt a sense of invincibility sneaking around the woods. It wasn't until we were home safe, bandaging our feet, that we figured it out as far as we ever would. The spark had been silence. He had stopped shoveling. And safe at home, I admitted that I'd looked back. Just a glance, for a split second. He had stopped shoveling and started walking. Fourth story. As a kid, my mom was married to a former military guy who had some pretty extreme ideas. He insisted we live off the grid, so he built this makeshift cabin deep in the woods. He got the lumber from an old barn that a local farmer wanted to tear down. The cabin was quite a hike from the nearest gravel road, and as a kid, walking alone through the dense forest from where we parked the car to the cabin was nerve-wracking. But the strangest thing I ever saw was a nearly silent flying object gliding low over the treetops. It moved so smoothly and quietly that it left me wondering, what on earth was that? Until recently, I had forgotten all about it. Aliens, maybe? I have another story, though. As an adult, I went camping with my boyfriend, Jake, on a friend's property that bordered a national park. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of heavy footsteps outside our tent. I grabbed a flashlight and a pocket knife, listening intently. I was half awake and shivering, either from the cold or from nerves. Then I heard this bizarre, almost screeching noise, like something out of a horror movie. We were in a remote part of Vermont, where dangerous wildlife isn't common. Occasionally, you might hear about a black bear sighting or a rare mountain lion, but those are few and far between. My heart was racing because I'd never heard anything like this before, and I've spent a lot of time in the woods. Eventually, the footsteps faded away, and the rest of the night was uneventful. The next morning, I told our friend about the noise. He said it was probably just a deer. I was skeptical. I'd never heard a deer make such an eerie sound. He showed us a video of a deer making a similar noise, and I was stunned. "That's it," I said. Apparently, we had disturbed a deer, and it was letting us know we were in its territory. Who knew deer could sound so creepy? Fifth story. When I was around 20 years old, a friend came over to help me with calculus late one night, around 10 p.m. After our study session, I allowed my friend to drive my car back to his house. He lived in a rural area on the outskirts of town, surrounded by almond orchards and cattle ranches. The drive was eerie, with only the occasional light breaking the darkness. As we drove in silence, something bizarre caught my eye. I saw a bull running on two legs, resembling a human. Its eyes were glowing red, and it seemed poised to turn towards us before suddenly vanishing into thin air. Shocked, I turned to my friend and asked if he had seen it too. My friend, equally startled, responded, "Was it a bull running on two legs with glowing red eyes that disappeared?" I confirmed, and he said, "Yeah, I saw that too." This strange encounter happened about 10 years ago. Interestingly, a coworker of mine came to work the following day, despite having the day off, just to share the exact same story with a friend. Additionally, 6 years after my experience, my ex was also in the car with us, but didn't notice anything as she was occupied with her cell phone. I've often wondered what we witnessed that night. Some people have suggested it could have been a Wendigo or a skinwalker. What are your thoughts? Thank you all for joining us on this thrilling journey through the woods. We hope you enjoyed these haunting camping stories as much as we enjoyed sharing them with you. Remember, the forest holds many mysteries, and sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that leave us wondering what lies just beyond the shadows. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling adventures. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and may your nights be free of the eerie whispers of the deep woods. Good night and sweet dreams.